Yeah, internet evangelism is my responsibility for BGA. I'll get into a little more about what that means over the next hour, but I'll do a quick bio. I was a mechanical engineer for a few years, and then left that, went into ministry on college campuses for a few years, and then, like some of you, started doing seminary while working full-time. So I went to Gordon Conwell, did my MDiv there. So I know what it's like to sit all day in classes and lectures and then have a full-time job on the side. So I started working at Billy Graham to answer the mail for Billy in Franklin. There was a department called Christian Guidance that would, when people write letters to Billy Graham, we would respond in his behalf, basically like pastoral writing. That's where I came into the organization. I did that job while I was finishing seminary. I was going to Gordon Conwell's Charlotte campus here. And then in 2011, they launched this ministry, and I won't go into the story, they asked me to join the starting team of 3 people to get it going, and I was planning to go plant a church or pastor. That was where I was already talking to some church planting groups and search committees, and Lord led me to stay here, and now 8 years later, we have a staff of about 25, along with some other teams around the world that we work with, 850 volunteers and 6 languages. And
Great.
yeah. So I haven't left. I told them, I'll help for a year, and then I'm going to go pastor. That was
pastoring through a different media.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming. So we are a class of students in either a master's or doctorate of ministry program studying as global evangelists.
Awesome.
So we have 16 total people in the program. Some have finished their classwork, working on their dissertation. These are still taking classes. And we have folks here from Kenya and Uganda and India and the United States.
Awesome.
So it's all yours, so thank you.
All right. Well, I've got a presentation to go through, but I'm open to audibles and answering questions, so I want this to serve your purposes for your studies and your interests. So I will start off with a little history. You may have gotten some of this, but a part of Billy Graham's mission and heritage was to... I'm sorry?
Your name, sir?
Mark Appleton. Mr. Graham's heritage and mission was to use every effective means possible to share the gospel. It's written in the mission statement of the organization, and to equip others to do the same is another aspect of the mission that I'll talk about here as well. So that meant in 1950, if you're familiar with the history, I don't know who's talked to you already, 1949, Mr. Graham's kind of coming of age moment when the Lord really opened up his ministry. 1950, he started using the radio. Hour of Decision program started airing on the radio. Used technology of the day to extend the reach of the gospel, to get it to more ears. If you've read about Mr. Graham's life, he was singular in focus, but then he was also pretty much open to any opportunity for more people to hear the gospel was basically his bottom line. In 1951, the Hour of Decision started on ABC, on TV. So you got radio, you've got television. Certainly there were a lot of televangelists developed over the next decades, but he was one of the initial ones in 1951 to really launch into that medium and use it in a broad way. And then let me check my dates here, 89, BGA used satellites at an event in the UK to live broadcast that event in locations all over the United Kingdom. They used satellites a few other times, but one of the largest events came in 1995 in Puerto Rico. If you're familiar with that event, I was reviewing this the other day, and it was actually pretty staggering to me. So Mr. Graham held a crusade in San Juan, Puerto Rico, but they used, they called it a global evangelistic effort. They used satellites. They live translated 48 languages. There were rows of translation booths behind the stage, 48 different languages being live translated, broadcast all over the world to 3,000 venues in 185 countries. So just think about that. 185 countries, there's only 200 and some odd in the world, depending on your counts. 3,000 established venues, 48 languages, all simultaneously hearing the gospel in 48 of those languages in their own personal language.
When you say venue, was that another stadium or?
Right, they gathered people in
Gathered.
various venues where they could put up a screen, gather an audience.
Large churches, I think, hosted.
Yep.
Was it 95?
1995, yeah. So that's the history of the organization, right? Use media technology to take, well, you could argue that Mr. Graham's in person spoke to more people than almost anyone on the planet ever has, but yet he was always thinking of how do we connect to more people. Well, in 1989, when BJ was first playing with satellites, there was a guy named Tim Berners-Lee in the UK who was playing around with something that he ended up calling the World Wide Web. Right? He's a British scientist who he developed the web as a way for researchers and academics to share information, to further research, to further communicate so they could be more responsive to one another and innovate and share academic findings. And so the rest is kind of history, right? You guys, I don't need to do any primers on the internet anymore. It's become kind of mainstream. Here's a quick look from January 2019. This is a group that publishes internet stats quarterly called We Are Social. And this is the global look. 4.4 billion, 57% of the world's population penetrated by the internet. That number has been exponentially growing, obviously, over the past 5 years. Mobile connectivity is 67%, right? So we're getting to a point where there will be a day when every single human being on the planet is connected. That's a staggering thought, right? There are already places in the world, some of you may be from them, where people have phones, but they don't have other things that we would think are bigger preferences or things that we would choose first. I've heard of places where people don't have consistent electricity, but they have mobile phones, and they'll travel to go get it charged and interact. We've had them interact with us on our websites. They'll write to us and say, yeah, I couldn't, sorry it was so long before I wrote, but my phone died and I had to wait till I could get it charged again. And they'd send a message and come back a week later. But,
Wow.
yeah. So this device is really changing the world. In a lot of places in the world, they're skipping this. They're never even going to have one of these, right? In the West, in the US, we think the evolution of desktop computers down to laptops and then tablets, and other parts of the world go straight to this, right? It's could do everything that most people need in the palm of their hands, various sizes. And so here we are in this situation where people globally are being connected more than they have ever been. And it's actually changing sociologically some younger generations. I don't have any reports to cite to you, but I've read some articles that there are consistencies developing in very culturally diverse people across the world, like in teenage age groups, because of their online habits and social interactions. There's commonalities developing that never existed before because they were so culturally diverse, but the space of the internet is bringing some commonalities that are bringing some likenesses together and habits and communication. And so in some unique ways, a teenager on two sides of the world can relate to each other a little bit more than they ever could before, if they were to ever meet before, because they would have never met before, right? But now we have volunteers who I'll talk about sitting in homes all over the United States, Canada, UK, Australia, Mexico, Spain, and talking to people in countries across the world, faces and people that they would have never in their lifetime ever had a chance to even meet, let alone communicate with. So, yeah.
So how much is your communication with people also visual?
Not yet.
Like WhatsApp or?
Right. We're just using the messaging functions right now. We haven't actually stepped into video yet, but that's absolutely a possibility.
Is it a goal? Are you purposing you're going that way, or do you mean it's a possibility?
Yeah, I mean, it's not in a direct plan at the moment. I know some of the online churches out there you can talk to, they're doing it more. It's something we've kind of put on the board. Like, as I'll show you in a few minutes, there's huge, so here's the benefit and the challenge of internet ministry, right? You can reach broad, but there's huge drop-offs every time you ask somebody to take a step, right? So I'll go through all that in a minute.
I think it's interesting how you show also urbanization.
Mm-hmm.
And you talk about the connection of two people from different parts of the world through social media having more in common. Tim Keller at Cape Town 2010 did a masterful job of talking not only that issue, but how global cities that have 10 million or more, the people in Rio de Janeiro, New York City, London have more in common
absolutely,
than the people outside of those cities in the same country.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you read his Center Church book, he's
and then
got all that in there.
brother here is developing a website for internet evangelism, and we just saw, it was last week, right, when we looked at that Fox News report, and it said that Africa right now has about 230 million users, but it's expected within the next 5 to 10 years to explode to over 600 million users, so more than triple.
Yeah, I mean, that's the largest open market to fill some of that gap.
Wow.
Yeah. The kind of making this point already. I'm just going to move on here, but before I get into some of the hows and what we're doing with it, I just want to point out still some of the opportunity that this presents, because there's a lot of, I'm the first to tell you that the internet's a mess. I mean, you know, knowledge without wisdom is a mess, and that's what we see every day online. And there's deception, there's all kinds of problems with the internet, but as an organization that seeks to use the medium that is available to people and that they're using to get the good news to them, there's a lot of gospel opportunity. So I already talked about availability, right? It's connecting people in other ways. Anonymity is another one, right? So this is a statement that came into us, very simple question on our website: why did Jesus die for us? Could you tell me which of those three people sent that question into us?
The guy at the bottom? I would say all of them.
Could be any of them. Yeah. The question actually came from Tanzania, from Dar es Salaam. I don't know if I said that right. Apologize if I don't. So the gentleman in the middle is a man from Tanzania. Just put a picture in there, not necessarily the person, but the whole point of this is there is an opportunity in the anonymity of the internet, right? That people will talk to somebody that they may never have had a conversation with. So that's a challenge. On the flip side, I can talk about bringing people out from behind that anonymous curtain is a challenge, but it also is a gospel opportunity. People will just tell you things. They'll just lay it out there. People go search online every day for crazy things. You can go to Google and it'll tell you what people are typing in search bars. You can read it. And there are people that you would not, people in our churches would, for all kinds of reasons, both kind of sickness in our own hearts and prejudices and just our own insecurities and fears, would never walk over to somebody and have a conversation. But on the internet, it's a screen with words. And we don't carry that stuff in. We actually have an open mind to who is this person, and we can learn about them without carrying some of our baggage into the conversation. So that's an opportunity. Like I said, there are challenges to that. People can hide. Our sinful hearts that want to keep our own selves on the throne of our world will stay hidden as long as we can. So, but we trust that as God works in someone's heart, the Holy Spirit is drawing them, and they will take those steps. But so that it's just, my point here is just that there's a gospel opportunity in the anonymity that the internet provides. But we do want to see people showing maturity and growth and moving beyond that. The last point I usually make about the gospel opportunity of the internet is the inherent authority that people give it. So here's the thing, right? If everybody was using something but nobody trusted it, what good would it be to have a message out there? Because they wouldn't inherently take it seriously anyway. Now, I know that there's fake news everywhere, but by and large, people still go to the internet for answers. They might be more skeptical than they were 5 or 6 years ago, but what's the first thing that somebody does when they want to answer something? And in the Western context, the quote I threw up here, Google became a verb, right? And he points out it's different than product companies that led in a product market like Kleenex and aspirin and these things that, their brand actually became the noun used to describe a product. Google actually became a verb. The act of Googling is searching on the internet, right? In the vernacular of the U.S. and the West, we say that because it's what people instinctively do now. The point being that there is an inherent trust or an inherent idea that the things I need answers to, I can go here to this place to find it. And that's a gospel opportunity. Like I said, if we put a message there but people never trusted the medium, then how effective is it going to be? But people are going online for everything you can imagine. How to kill myself, what should I name my child? Unfortunately, they don't ask trusted people that I have close relationships with anymore. They'll go here. So again, that's a problem, but for the sake of global evangelism, it's also an opportunity to be there. But here's the bottom line. These are all reasons to do it, but I actually like to simplify it and back it way down and just say, we go do this because that's where people are. That doesn't sound super exciting, but that's the bottom line. The internet, the digital space has become a space. It's an environment where people are, right? So just like in the decades past, Americans and British sent missionaries all over the world, or now more recently, the Chinese and South Koreans and South Americans and Africans as well are sending out missionaries, right? To take the gospel places. Why? Because there's lost people there and they need to hear the gospel. Well, guess what the biggest space is developing in the entire planet right now? The digital space. And so that's where people are. That's where they work. That's where they play. That's where they laugh. That's where they ask questions. And so we must be there with the gospel. It's that simple for me. I was not an early adopter techie guy. I'm doing this because God gave me a heart and burden for His mission, His global mission. He exposed me to people around the world earlier in my life, which I'm grateful for. And just, it simply strategically makes sense to me. That's why. I'm not the guy that goes out and buys the newest gadget and thinks technology is wonderful. I was the last person I knew to get a cell phone because I didn't want to buy into this trend, right? That was kind of my instinct. But I sit here and say, how could we not be doing this? Like, for every challenge and hurdle and problem, When you consider someone like Mr. Graham calling to share the gospel with people of the world, this is where people are, so we have to go be there with the biggest message that matters, right? So that's the bottom line. And that's why I still come to work here every day to do this. I read the Bible. Where do I start? It's some practical things like here's a Bible, find the book of John, read here. How do I understand the Bible? Here's 3 basic questions to ask as you're reading. It's just some practical things that if they're on their own and they don't do anything else, we're still giving them some guidance. There's 12 of these emails that they get. The church referrals. So this is a tool that's functioning, like I said, in the U.S. Now it's just opened up in the U.K., Canada, Australia, primarily English-speaking countries right now. For our non-English languages, we have some other things we're doing that's not based in a map tool like this, where we're actually just passing specific contacts off to certain people behind the scenes.
Where's the Billy Graham Center? Is that the big red?
No, we're not on here because we're not a church, but we would be right near the airport up there.
Where's the airport?
We're right here. I think we're right there, actually. So
Thank you.
this tool lets people go right to the church's website. So we may never hear from them again, but we help them connect to one of these churches. Or there's a form in here where they can actually say request contact, fill in this form, and we go to the church, pass off the contact, and do the same process we do at a crusade, where we say, okay, here's this person. Within a week, we want you to tell us that you contacted them. We just started passing some to India. It's a small number. It's been about 10 people that just one-offs here and there that we've passed. And then Venezuela, we have a unique thing going on behind the scenes there. We've actually handed off 12 or 20 contacts to local pastors down there. So here's the big numbers since 2011. Oops, I missed a comma. Sorry about that. 71 million website visitors. These are all the different languages combined, but most of the traffic is coming from English. And then we just passed 2 million follow-up forms. So that means the indicated decision is just literally on the website. They click, yes, I want to respond to the gospel. Request follow-up means they then filled in the form with their name, email address, and asked for more materials and then engaged with us further. So to put that in a little more of a tangible view to me, those numbers are almost like meaningless to everyday life. So this is on average every day lately, just under 28,000 visitors on our sites each day, and 777 follow-up forms. I didn't make that up. The calculation actually came out very nice. I just took our monthly number from last month and divided it by 30. So if you think about that, my church here in Charlotte's about 400 to 500 people. That's about 2 times my church every day actually giving us email address, engaging with us to some degree.
But Mark, I may have missed it. How do you define the indicated decision? Would we describe that as they feel confident they made a decision to yield to God's lordship? I mean,
I would not know.
you wouldn't go there. So what sort of a decision did they make?
They saw an invitation on the website with a written out prayer saying, if God's prompting your heart, here is an example of a way you can pray. And then, did you do this? And they click yes.
But maybe that's a humble response to them really making a decision.
Yeah,
You know?
absolutely. No, it's a meaningful number. I just am cautious about not to put too much weight in that number. I don't know enough about it.
One question I have is, and it's just kind of detailed, you know, usually at the Crusades, they use the term inquiries. That's a big, it just seems like the messages then is between inquiry and decision seems.
Right, well, that's why I actually have kind of forced us to put indicated decisions in this, so to try to kind of carry that implication that someone has indicated a response, but that's all we know at that point. So it's a significant part of our process, right? So someone has to do that to move on, but it's just too much we don't know about it to say too much about it, right?
But what you said is accurate, because they personally indicated that they prayed the prayer that's online.
Correct.
The same thing we do in our events, we have either, you know, some way they designate, I prayed with the evangelist to receive grace.
Right.
So that's what we
So
said.
they're making that designation and we're reporting that.
Right.
But as a pastor and minister, I want to know more. I want to hear more about them. So that's why we keep going. So it is an important point, and we report it. It's on our map out there showing people responding. That's not the whole story. So this equates to about every 3 seconds, someone's on our website. About every 2 minutes, somebody filling in a form. So, incredible opportunity. Just to give you a couple faces. Let's see, what are we doing on time here? 11:35. Still got some more stuff to get through. This is Daher from Iraq. That's his actual Facebook profile picture. Just because the numbers get kind of statistical and generic. This is a translation of some comments he made to Facebook. Without community, wishing for someone to rescue me and teach me the right way. I need someone to rescue me from my burdens and sorrow. Over several weeks, he had a conversation with one of our volunteers in Arabic, and decided to give his life to Jesus.
So that's not a real picture of him? Or-
That is a real
Oh, wow.
picture. That's actually, we took it from his Facebook profile. So it could be fake if he faked it, but this is his actual profile he used to communicate with us. And then this is Scarlett. This is a real picture of her as well. She's in Colorado. She found our website. It's a personal life event, just kind of sent her spinning. She grew up in what she described as a outwardly religious home in North Carolina. But apparently her experience drove her very far away from Christianity, from what we know so far. She tried a bunch of other faiths and then kind of did the agnostic thing for a while. And then in December of this last year, her dog died or something, and she's single, and it was a really significant moment in her life, and she was just she went online, ended up on our website, signed up for our discipleship courses, and God just awakened her to faith that she'd thrown away a long time ago, and she believed. We connected her to her church, and our church finder was the whole story. It was wonderful. She went, she joined the membership class within a month. She got baptized within, I think in March she got baptized. This picture we grabbed off of her testimony video that she shared on the Facebook page of her church that she's joined now. So just a quick picture to show that there are real life story. There's people behind all of these numbers. And speaking of that, there is an army of people that is doing ministry on these websites every day. So most of the staff that I work with in here are actually involved in selecting, training, leading volunteers to do ministry on these websites. And so there are more than just in the United States, but that's the biggest concentration of them, so that's what's in the picture. But and primarily English speakers right now, but we have 120 or so Spanish speaking volunteers now. The Arabic team is small, it's around 10, but growing. Portuguese about 40, and Korea has 12 they're starting off with, and then Mandarin he's still trying to get it.
Sorry, Mark, what's the color coding on there?
Those are just we call them area teams. We group them. There are volunteer leaders. They're volunteers that lead other volunteers, and that's just a sense of community. They check in with them, help them out.
Is that the blue?
All those different colors are different teams,
Oh,
so.
okay,
Maybe a little dark
thanks.
blue.
Yeah, more blue.
Um, So, quick history here, before I jump into our training. You talked to Gary Cobb
Yes.
yesterday, so Gary's a training guy. He and I chatted about this the other day. I told him I'd represent training more in my presentation.
So you got
because-
Dawson Trotman's picture in there.
That's right, there you go. So, here's a quick history of why this is important to our organization. One night, apparently, Mr. Graham was sleepless in the Los Angeles Crusade, just burdened by, are these people being cared for well? There was follow-up going on, but one thing I didn't realize till Gary told me was in '49, Billy was invited as a guest, so there was no BGA that put on the event. So there was follow-up being done by the local people, but it was out of his hands, and he didn't know a lot about it.
It was probably done by Hollywood Press. Henrietta Mears is a very famous
Yeah.
lady, you know, Bible teacher and all
And
that.
Gary told me that Dawson Trotman was actually there and was counseling people just personally. Kind of an interesting side story, but.
Yeah.
And then in 1950, Billy was at an event where Dawson was speaking, and he was kind of convicted about this again and approached Dawson for the first time. We need help with following up with these people coming forward at our events. We want it to be stronger and better for them. And Gary's more dramatic in the retelling of the story, but there were many approaches, and Dawson was like, I'm too busy, I can't do this, I'm sorry. Multiple requests, and finally he committed, I'll give 6 months to look at this with you and try to help out your team. He went to Shreveport, Louisiana event in '51, observed everything that was going on, and out of that came the first material. They called it B rations, kind of a war term. It was what they called their first training content that they put out. It was Dawson, a guy named Lauren Sandy, and Charlie Riggs, who ended up coming on staff with BGA and becoming the counseling and follow-up person for BGA for a long time. Gary actually was mentored by Charlie Riggs. So that was kind of the history of, they developed a training to train Christians in the area on evangelism and how to follow up people who come and disciple them and get them into churches so that when they left, people were still cared for. So that that's kind of a heritage. A lot of people don't realize that about the events, but the team stayed months after. Someone from the team, not the whole team, stays for months after the event to make sure that the churches contacted all the people that came forward. They call them, they bug them, until they hear that everyone was contacted by a local church. The very night of the events, actually, a letter goes to the church that they're matched to, the person who came forward, and the counselor are all mailed out that night before anyone goes to sleep.
Wow.
So they do take the care and follow-up of people very seriously. So with that heritage in the online ministry, we adapted a lot of that content that began way back with Dawson Trotman, which eventually turned into what's called the Christian Life and Witness course. Did Gary, anyone bring that up yet with you guys? So we have a version of that course for online evangelism as well. So these volunteers who are working with us, they pretty much apply like they're getting a job. They fill out an application, we interview them, they pay for their own criminal background check. We get references from pastors and church leaders, and then they enter into a training program. So Christian Life and Witness course is kind of our ground zero. No matter who you are, this is what living a life for Christ and a witness for Christ is all about. It really doesn't have anything to do with internet evangelism. We teach the same content at a proclamation event, a festival, or celebration. It's just kind of the core content of BGA, of getting people on the same page. Make sure we're all on the same page with what walking with the Lord is. And so our training online follows that broad to narrow kind of principle. So we start with that. This is all digital and online in my ministry, so they go to a learning management system.
You guys might have one with your school, I don't know, where you log in and can see video courses, things like that. So the volunteers do this on their own pace. They do the Christian Life Winners course. Then they have what we call general volunteer training, was where it starts to apply just for internet ministry, things they need to know no matter what role they're going to play with us. Here's some things we want you to know about internet ministry. And then role-specific training. So, okay, you're going to be a chat volunteer. Here's things you need to know to be a chat volunteer. Oh, you're going to be a discipleship coach to mentor people in a course. Here's what you need to know to do that. So we start general Christian witness, getting everyone on the same page, then here's what you need to know to do internet ministry, and here's what you need to know to do your specific job. So that's kind of the training sequence that we go through. It's pretty long. There's 8-9 hours worth of content here for them to get through it all. And if you think this is a volunteer, and we don't let them start doing anything unless they go through this. There's also a hands-on element to this. So after they do the online content, they get matched with a trainer and have to practice. So if you're a chat coach and you're going to handle live chats on the website, you actually get matched with a trainer who does mock chat scenarios with you and pretends to be a visitor and just sees how you handle it and gives you feedback.
How likely are you to give us access to your training?
You want to volunteer?
I want to mimic what you're doing. I don't want to remake the wheel.
Yeah, I can show you more about it.
Okay.
What's in it?
Well, there's no, Greg, if you're gonna teach it, then you better study it.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
You
go
volunteer,
through it.
you serve, and then you
Yeah.
can go replicate it out.
Yeah,
These
there
are
you
my
go.
reality.
You can't just get it by
That is a-
osmosis, though.
Yeah, that's a great way to get the pure sauce.
The spicy or the regular?
The special.
You gotta make sure you like
Special.
Y'all are wrong.
So if they're a discipler, an online course, we make them be a student in an online course to experience that. If they're an email coach, even answering emails that get submitted, we give them 5 sample emails and see how they respond to them, different types of questions. And then we give a lot of coaching as to how we do it, why we don't do it. We always relate everything to the gospel. We're not the Bible answer ministry. We're not the counseling ministry. And so as you can imagine, though, we get all kinds of very intense things come in. And so,
You're not the Bible answer man?
no, Hank, whatever his name is, he got that.
Bible to him.
We try to speak some biblical truth to their question, but then steer them to the gospel. So since we're evangelism ministry, we try to train the volunteers that we're kind of going to be obnoxiously about the gospel. So, and if they really want to debate theology, then they can go do that with other ministries. It's okay. It's not our role. So we don't ignore issues. You got to address people's questions, but we just train them not to go way down the path with those lines of thinking. So, we do continual webinars as well. The team does live webinars with the volunteers to try to keep them engaged and giving them new ideas. We do quarterly feedback with each of them. We're reviewing 10% of all the conversations that go on, and then every quarter the volunteer from their volunteer leader has a check-in. And, hey, we noticed these things going on. Remember, these resources are available. Oh yeah, hey, you're doing this awesome. Look at the way that you connected with the person, and this is a great example. So both encouragement and training. So our thought is we all need to just keep getting better at the ministry together, and it provides accountability. So we have a big investment in the volunteer ministry. They're doing about 130 live chats a day, 300. These were just straight averages off of last month. 500 personal messages in the online course. Oh, it's a good thing too. I keep knocking it off.
Yep,
It stays on the batteries are good.
I got some new batteries, so let's see. Maybe that's wrong. Says phone.
These are total, right? They're
These are per day, yeah. Averages per day. So like about 130 a day come in.
Not per person of the.
No, no.
For 2 hours a week
Is that here or just from their home?
from their home. And so they typically log in for an hour a couple different times a week. Or a lot of them are really into it and they'll do 4 or 5 hours. But so in an hour they might get 1 or 2 conversations. Some of them might get 5, some of them might get 0 occasionally. Depends on how many people are on. So we're also doing more social media communication like Facebook Messenger. Those stats aren't in here yet because that's kind of smaller and growing. And it's in Arabic and some of our other languages. We're also looking into WhatsApp, and different parts of the world have different predominant social media channels. So like Japan has one called Line, which basically all Japanese people use. South Korea has KakaoTalk, which all Koreans dominates their communication. China has WeChat, yeah.
So just so you know, the WeChat in China, I have Evangelist's friend, his pastor's been arrested a couple of times.
Yeah.
And the police, because they watched the whole WeChat.
Oh, they do,
And they
yeah.
brought the WeChat to his door and said, you have an underground church, and arrested him based on the WeChat.
Yeah.
So,
No, I know.
Firewalls.
well, they have total access to it because they allow it. So
Yeah, WeChat
the
is a
government-
Chinese product, and so
Yeah.
everything on WeChat's open, so,
Yeah.
or open to the Chinese government. So.
Yeah, they literally arrested him.
WeChat's a whole dominant platform. They make their purchases there. They have whole web pages within WeChat.
That's
It's
their Apple Pay, their WeChat.
yeah, it's a whole digital ecosystem. But
M-Pesa.
we're running low on time, so I'm just going to push through here. The 119,000 hours is the one I wanted to point out in this stat. That was last year, 2018. Our volunteers served 119,000 hours, which equates to 13.6 years of time. So yeah, we have a lot of very committed people that really see this as an outlet ministry for them because they can do it, kind of fit it into their lives, and they get to talk to people all over the world and have an opportunity.
Do you ever collaborate with Global Media Outreach?
A little bit. I know those guys, or I talked to their CEO last year. They've kind of done their own thing for a long time in this space, but they're starting to collaborate a little bit more. So,
Or need him here in the States?
yeah, we actually use Need Him the same.
In what way do you use need him?
We use the same communication tool that they built, so we're partners in that sense.
Cool.
Great guys down there, yeah. So there's a whole network, that Jesus.net network that I mentioned. Those are all a lot of different ministries all doing this together and working together on it. So there's a lot of people at work in the space.
Didn't they have a conference, like the guys from Life Church and others got Global Media? I don't know if you guys were represented there.
No.
Fall or something.
No, I'm not familiar with it. I mean, they may have, but we weren't there.
Maybe I'll send you, they sent me a thing about it.
Yeah, let me know. There's all these like little sub-networks. So we're in the Jesus.net network. I'm attending a thing soon. Lausanne is having like a little working group on technology and evangelism. And, yeah, so you'll see that there's a bunch of people. People are starting to try to work better together. It's just a lot of them out there now, so getting everybody on the same page. Got 7 more minutes. I'm gonna skip this because I don't know if it's even gonna play. This was just a little thing our volunteers did because I wanna, that little video was just them saying why they serve with us, and it's pretty moving to me that it's a significant ministry to so many of them, and so it's a privilege to facilitate that. But I just wanted to close by pointing out that this is a whole like side job that Internet Evangelism does. So what I gave you the big picture view there of was our ministry that we lead 24 hours a day in these different languages. But alongside that, our task is also to extend the reach of everything else BGA does in this building with digital ministry. So the rapid response team, if you've heard about them. They offer emotional and spiritual care in crisis situations. They have chaplains that deploy. We just launched a texting tool for them. So they have little cards that their chaplains are going to carry out that say, text the word hope to this number if you still need help. And because not everyone they talk to, they have time to follow up with, or they'll ever even see again. Or sometimes they do have a good conversation and they want to connect them to something, because usually the churches in these communities are a mess too, because the church is flattened or they're trying to deal with their own people. And so pretty excited about this opportunity. Those folks will text in, and specially trained chaplains who work both with us and that ministry will respond to them, also send them resources, try to keep them going until things get more stable in the community. If you think about it, if you see news, I know those of us in the United States anyway, when a tornado or disaster comes through and you see nothing but what everybody still has in their hand, right? They have no more pictures of their family, they don't have a place to sleep, but everybody's still holding this because it's in their pocket and it's their way to stay connected with everybody, right? So,
Even when things are flattened, they bring in all the mobile towers and
right.
they're back home.
They have access. So we're supporting the rapid response team. People that come forward at the Billy Graham Library, which I'm sure you're going through at some point if you haven't already. There's an invitation there. Some people respond to the gospel there. Often they fill in a card. They get all of that email series I showed you. The online discipleship gets sent to those people. And then the streaming, the events. Whenever Franklin and Will preaches in a stadium, Internet Evangelism, along with some of the support teams in the building, put the event online to just try to extend the reach of it. So those numbers are actually a month old. They don't include some of the most recent events, but the pictures that you see there were from the Bangkok, Thailand event, which is just phenomenal. We had around 80,000 views online, and 1,000 people indicated a response just in that event online. And that was not a click of a button. All those people actually got connected to a Thai group of responders through Facebook Messenger who followed them up. And that picture of that lady, this lady here. I'm sorry, man. I was brutal with this thing.
It's still recording.
I apologize. Yeah, so she was someone who watched the event online. She couldn't make it to the event. I'm sorry. She came the first night, didn't respond. She was still wrestling, watched it the second night, got connected. These two were on the follow-up response team digitally and led her to Christ over the next couple of days through Facebook Messenger. And she says, I want to meet you. You just changed my life. And they met up at McDonald's in Bangkok like the week afterwards. And so it's a cool picture of that engagement. So this really just to show that we're also a part of the other evangelistic outreaches that BGA does. And we basically just try to extend them all. They put in all that time, effort, and money to put on a proclamation event for a weekend. And for a little bit more money and effort, we can actually make it a bigger reach and get it online as well. And so that's what we try to do. But
It's also archived online, so if you didn't live stream Bangkok, maybe you could go back a week or two later or a month later and see it.
some of them are. So there's a lot of licensing issues with things like that.
Because of the music.
Because of the music, yeah. So some of them portions are on Facebook Live because we put it on Facebook Live and it archives it itself. We typically don't leave them all up on our website because of licensing. We'll put them up for like a week or 2 weeks, depending, and then take them down because things are much more complicated than you think that they should be. Every time you play a song anywhere, you have to pay somebody.
They'll shut you down on Facebook.
They
If
will,
you-
yeah.
If you play music, even the intro, even if it's a cover,
Yeah.
if they can't see that you paid for it, they will shut that live stream down.
Yep, they will.
Look at it.
Well, I'm running out of time. You guys have asked questions, but any more, feel free.
Questions for Mark there?
just with, don't forget to connect me. I really want, not with
Yeah.
your material, but with somebody that can help me with
Yeah.
ideas. And
I'll give you 2 names here right before I leave. So.
Mark, appreciate you, brother. All of you are great what you're doing for the Lord, and I just love to see all people come to know the Lord and just using technology for God's kingdom. So appreciate you, brother.
Sure.
Great job.
Thank you.
Very
Appreciate
informative.
it.
Thank you. Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
You guys gotta wear ties every day, right?
You're funny. You're like devotions every day, tithes every day.
and as far as opportunity
Every day?
A lot more
costs,
casual in the Northwest, brother.
Everybody's changing their staff policy now.
Yeah, that's right.
It's ties.
opportunity costs about you going to be a pastor. You're a pastor over thousands now.
I know.
So